Good morning. Welcome to the Allegheny Highlands Regional Library. I'm Becky Scott. I'm a staff member here at the library. So today we're going to make granola that's supposed to be good for you. Oftentimes you'll find several different varieties of granola in the grocery store, but I think what you make at home is better because you can add to or take away anything that you don't like. This is a very basic recipe. You start out by preheating the oven to 325 degrees. All of the recipes that we'll be doing for this series will also be uploaded to your computer so that if you want to download them and try them yourself, then it will be very easy to do. So you're going to preheat your oven to 325 degrees, and you need a jelly roll pan, which is a 13 by 15 pan that has it has to have at least a slight lip or you're going to end up with granola all over the kitchen, which I do anyway. You spray your pan very, very well with cooking spray, or if you don't like cooking spray, you can certainly butter it, but you need to make sure that every part is covered well because this is a sticky mess and it will stick and make a mess in your pan. So make sure you spray it well. After you do that, then you are ready to actually start measuring and whisking and mixing things together. So I'm going to start off by measuring my fourth cup of brown sugar. I'm going to pack it in tightly to make sure we have exactly a fourth cup. Next, you're going to have a fourth cup of canola oil. I've also made this recipe before with coconut oil and added coconut at the end to toast it, and that's very good. And here's a little tip. If you do the brown sugar and then the canola oil, the next ingredient is a fourth cup of honey. Honey is very messy, and as I've said before, I'm a very messy cook. But if you pour it in your measuring cup after you do the oil, notice how it plops right out. And in a minute I'll show you how it just basically rolled itself right out of there, and I didn't have to do any cleanup at all. I'm just going to whisk those together to break up, no matter how careful you are with brown sugar, you almost always end up with some lumps. So I'm going to whisk that together, and I forgot my whisk this morning, so we're using a spoon, but it's all good. It doesn't matter if you use a spoon. Now you're going to add what makes the granola good, in my opinion. This is where you're going to add vanilla, you're going to add cinnamon, and you're going to add salt. So I'm going to start out with, the recipe calls for a fourth a teaspoon of cinnamon. That's not nearly enough cinnamon for me. I love cinnamon. I'm actually going to add a teaspoon of cinnamon. And just level it off, dump it in. You need a half teaspoon of salt. So I'm going to dump that in. Another thing you need to do is always make sure when you're doing something that's baking, don't wing it, measure it. I don't measure a lot of things when I'm cooking. Sometimes it turns out, sometimes it doesn't. But when you're baking, a recipe oftentimes will not turn out. This one definitely will not turn out if you don't measure the ingredients. Something will be way too sticky and it won't turn out. So on this, you have to go by the book, cooking by the book, and you have to measure. After you've whisked that together really well, then all you need to do is pour in 3 cups of old-fashioned oats. These are steel cut. You don't want the quick cook oats. In this recipe where you're going to bake this for 20 to 21 minutes, they will break down and kind of get, not mushy, but they're way too fine. They don't have a good texture. So I've already measured this out. This is 3 cups of steel cut oats. And all you're going to do is just simply stir and stir and stir and stir some more until you get every little piece of oatmeal totally covered with all this good. You can't go wrong. There's sugar, there's oil, there's honey, cinnamon, vanilla, salt. How can you go wrong with any of those flavors? So you stir it extremely well. You break up, and it will clump. It wants to go ahead and clump, but you don't want it to clump now, because as it bakes, the clumps will actually get a little burned, and that's no good. Burned granola is definitely not a good thing. So you stir it well. And after you feel like you've gotten it broken up about as well as you can, and that just about every piece of the oatmeal is covered with all of the good sugar stuff, then you're going to spread it into your jelly roll pan. And you want to make sure that it is evenly spread all the way around. If you don't, again, the thin part will burn as you cook it, and the thicker part will not get crispy. and neither one is a good thing. So you just dump everything out, and I always use a spatula because, again, I'm a messy cook and a sloppy cook, and I want every bite out. For one thing, that's a lot of flavor in the bottom. See all that good brown sugar cinnamony stuff? You want all of that out. And then you spread it out as evenly as possible in your pan. Make it a thin layer. The oven by this time should be preheated. It really doesn't take long normally to preheat an oven to 325 degrees because it's such a low temperature. So you spread this out evenly as possible. And of course, when I'm on camera, I'm not going to do a good job. Not that I do a great job when I'm not on camera, but worse when I am on camera, I believe. You spread it out. And as soon as you feel like you have it about as evenly as possible, then you are going to put this in your oven, your 325 degree oven that you've preheated. You're going to put that in for 7 minutes. It's very important that you time this because, again, it will either be raw or it'll be too hard. You'll make it burn. 7 minutes, you put it in the oven. After 7 minutes, then you pull it out of the oven and you take your spatula or you take anything that's got a sharp point on it. Flip it all to the middle like this. Stir it all around because if you don't, again, something's going to burn and something's not going to cook evenly. So you stir it all to the middle and flip it over. Then you smooth it out again, making sure that all the corners are filled, all the sides are filled, and everything in the middle is not one big clump. And put it back in the oven for another 7 minutes. And again, time it. After that 7 minutes, it's going to come out of the oven. You're going to stir it all up again, just like you did the first time. This time, you're going to add nuts, if you like them. If you don't like nuts, that's fine. I love nuts. I happen to have pecans at home. And I've put them in a little bag, a little Ziploc bag. I'm going to use my handy rolling pin. And you whack them. After you whack them, and you get them broken up, and you can chop them, but I hate to chop anything. I'm terrible with a knife, so I don't do it. I whack them. And see, it's pretty well broken up now. I still see a chunk there, but that's okay. That's okay. I can break it up. And as you sprinkle them, you're going to sprinkle them evenly over the top. If you put the nuts in before you bake it, or if you put it in after the first 7 minutes, sometimes, depending on the type of nut, sometimes they will burn, and that's nasty too, so you don't want to do that. So put these in the last 7 minutes. So in all, you are going to bake this 20 to 21 minutes. And after the first 7 minutes, you stir. You put it back in, 7 more minutes, you bake it. And then after the second 7 minutes, this is where you add your nuts. If you want coconut, and again, if you use coconut oil and put coconut in there and toast it, that's really good stuff too. Oftentimes when I do that, I'll use almonds or nothing at all. So you put it back in the oven for 7 minutes, pull it out, put it on a cooling rack, let it cool completely. Now, if you like soft granola, after about 10 or 15 minutes, you can actually use your spatula and you can turn it. I like big chunky pieces, so I let it cool completely. But after it cools completely, you're going to pull out your raisins and you just sprinkle it throughout. And then you stir it in an airtight container, and you can just leave it out. You don't have to refrigerate it. It can be stored for about 4 days. It probably won't last that long in your house. It doesn't last that long in my house. It's supposed to serve 6, but if you have hearty eaters like we have in my house, it's probably going to serve about 4. So that's quick and easy granola. It's good for you. It's easy to make, and hopefully you will enjoy making it. Thank you.